Hello, everybody. It's Miss Hans, and we are up to reading lesson number 3. So you will need your week 6 packet at this time, and you are going to go all the way to the back to Friday, and you are going to find the Sea Otter text. Okay? It's labeled close read. All right, our teaching point for today is readers closely read poems by thinking about meaning. Think, what is the poem really about? Theme, think, what lesson does the poem develop? And figurative language, we're going to think, what is repeating and why? Poetry is a genre that we have not done a lot of work with, but I do want you guys to know some things about it. So here is the academic vocabulary that you will hear me say as I go through this lesson with you. So we have poem, and poems have lots of figurative language. We know that figurative language is simile, metaphor. These are all examples of figurative language. Okay, simile and metaphor we're very familiar with. Then we have stanzas and lines. So I'll explain more about what those words mean. Then we have a rhyme scheme and we have a speaker. Speaker is basically who is telling us the poem. So who's speaking to the reader. So here's what we are trying to achieve today. We want to practice making meaning of a poem. So let's begin. So here is the Sea Otter poem I was talking to you about. And watch me as I go through the genre lens that we will be reading for. So for poetry, I know that there could be a character. We know that there would be theme, setting. We said figurative language is going to be very important. There could be a problem, and with a problem comes a solution, but not always. We're just going to keep that in mind, just in case that does happen in this poem. So the directions read the poem, then answer the questions that follow. You guys will be taking the Google form quiz after you have finished reading the poem and after you have finished answering the questions. The questions are in your packet, so you can choose to do it in your packet first and then do it on Google Forms, or I have included the pictures of the questions so you can just go straight into the Google form after you have done the reading of the poem. So let's look at this. Remember, we're going to be thinking about the meaning, the theme, and the figurative language that we see. If I Were an Otter by Pat Lessy. Okay. And we see a sea otter here. We see an image. And it seems like this otter is pretty happy over here swimming. Okay, let's begin reading. If I were an otter, a southern sea otter, I lived in the ocean, not far from the shore. I would dive to the bottom, my grocery store, to dig clams and catch sea urchins that I adore. This right here, what we just read, they're not called paragraphs in poetry. These are called stanzas. Let's type it out. Maybe it'll be better to see. Yes, it is. So this is a stanza, and every line that you see here, it's not a sentence. These are called lines. In poetry, we call these lines. So let's go ahead and type that out so you guys know. Okay. And I'm noticing that I'm seeing some writing. I see shore, store, adore. Okay. So I'm noticing that in this stanza, otter, shore, no, that doesn't rhyme, but shore, store, and adore, these 3 lines at the end of the stanza rhyme. Now, it is your job as you continue reading the rest of the poem to see if that rhyme scheme is repeating. But right now we're noticing that the second line is rhyming with the third line, and that also rhymes with the fourth line. Okay, let's keep reading. So far we know it's about a sea otter and how they're just going to the ocean, going to the bottom to the grocery store. So this is what we mean about figurative language. Is there really a grocery store at the bottom of the ocean? No, there isn't. This is an example of figurative language. I'm going to type it up here so you guys can see it better. And we'll make it much smaller. Yeah, that's better. Okay, let's keep reading. If I were an otter, a clam-eating otter, while opening clams, I would float on my back. I would balance a stone on my chest, and then whack. The clams would break open. Their tough shells would crack. So I'm noticing that the speaker is describing how the otter is eating in this stanza. So let's go back to our teaching point because I want us to think about how we're going to continue to closely read the poem. So we're thinking about what is the poem really about. So far, I'm noticing that the poem is just really describing the sea otter and what the sea otter is doing. How the sea otter goes to the bottom of the ocean. How the sea otter is getting some clams to eat. And I'm noticing that the author keeps repeating, if I were an otter, if I were an otter. So that's something that is repeating. Now I'm wondering why. Why would somebody say, if I were an otter? It's kind of making me think that the speaker probably really likes otters, probably thinks that they're really amazing animals, and that's why that line keeps repeating. Okay? So far, do we have a theme? Well, let's continue reading and see if you guys find something else out. But so far, it seems like a very positive poem. So I'm thinking about like a positive theme that might come to mind. I'm seeing that it has to do with nature. And I'm also noticing that it has to do with just the admiration that this poet has for the sea otters. She seems to really enjoy watching them and even wants to be one. So guys, now you're going to continue reading the rest of the poem on your own, and then you will be taking the Google quiz. Remember that readers closely read poems by thinking, what is the poem really about? By thinking, what lesson does the poem develop? And by paying attention to figurative language and thinking, what is repeating and why? Good luck, everyone. See you next time.